Just a quick announcement before today's devlog video. I have created a new Discord server for aspiring indie devs. I've also set up a place for devs to post their work as well as share their social media accounts. You'll find a resource tab where I've linked some really cool articles to game development, where you can get free sounds and textures as well as a bunch of articles to help you design your game levels. I hope to see you there. Before I get into everything, I would like to drop a bit of advice to new developers and aspiring indie devs learning all the software that comes with making a game. Do not try and do everything perfectly the first time around. I have found that while continuing development of my game, I gain a bunch of knowledge every day. So the advice is, make it work, then make it pretty. A few months will go by and you will go back to your code and realize it was dog poop. And then you can make it work better. What I'm trying to say is, just get something working enough to convey the message. Alright, let's jump into this week's updates. My name is Gareth and this is a 7th entry into the Cloak Protocol Devlog diaries. In this devlog I decided to go full debug mode. Also decided to refine a bunch of the mechanics currently in the game so that I can start building the first level of Cloak Protocol. I decided to refine the wall hug mechanic as well as the third person movement. I went a step further and fixed the third person looking mechanic and managed to get the weapons firing and reloading working 100%. I also refined the inventory system so that the player can unequip items. Let's get right into the devlog and I will drop a sneak peek into the first level. So to start, I decided to refine the wall hug mechanic. Seeing as this is one of the core hooks and core gameplay mechanics of my game, I wanted to fix it. The issue I was facing here was, when the player ran into a wall at an angle, the player would hug the wall and the P cameras would transition. This really messed up the visibility of the player as well as produced unwanted results. When developing a third-person game, you will also face the same issue I face with the player character. If you want to aim your weapon or run into cover or simply just do a cool camera transition, you need to keep track of the player mesh separately to the other game objects attached to the player. A great example of this is as follows. If you have a player character that allows the player to equip separate weapons or clothes, and you have multiple cameras that the player can transition to and from, such as a left or a right shoulder camera in the settings, how would you rotate the player mesh and keep your camera, clothes, weapons, meshes all in the correct orientation? The answer: keep the mesh completely separate to all the other components, such as the weapons, cameras, armors, and such. This way you can manipulate the child character mesh game object without manipulating the parent player game object. And this is where my issue came in with the wall hug mechanic. The parent game object and the child mesh game object got out of sync. This meant that the character mesh and the parent game object rotated separately and ended up misaligning. Get those two in sync again and you have a perfectly working wall hug mechanic that works on all walls. A small side note, after days of research and reaching out to AAA game dev mentors I had in the past, I can confirm that this is how most studios handle third person or isometric top-down characters. It allows them to manipulate the mesh, rotation, position, as well as adding of items to the mesh without worrying about keeping track of the mesh transform because it gets parented to the parent player game object. And all you need to focus on is ensuring the game object being added to the character mesh is orientated correctly, like a weapon for instance. Next up, I decided to refine the shooting and reloading. Admittedly, the third person look is a little faulty because I need to figure out how the dead zones work on the controller, as well as set the sensitivity to the look around based on the input like the keyboard and mouse or a gamepad like the Xbox or PlayStation controller. So I was getting a bunch of errors being thrown because I did not set the default items the player started the game with. This was a simple fix and it allowed me to spawn the player with a set amount of items or no items at all. I then made it so that the player can shoot and reload based on the weapon type being held. This was rather complex issue to solve, and I would be more than happy to do a tutorial on it if you all ask for it in the comment section down below. Before we get into the good stuff, it would be amazing if you could hit the subscribe button, click the like button and turn on the notification bell. It really helps the channel grow and it will keep you in the loop for when I publish new videos. Feel free to leave a comment, question, or suggestion in the comment section down below. I've also set up a Discord channel for those wanting a place to hang out, or for those wanting to learn, seek help, or share your progress with others. You can find the link in the description below. Thank you so much for your support. Next up, I decided to add some flair to the game and figure out how to get different camera angles working in the game. I did not want to keep one single camera angle for the entire game, and I did not want to have the player get bored of the monotone top-down camera angle. So I decided to introduce two new camera transitions. The one is a room camera transition. This triggers when a player runs into an enclosed room. The camera transitions to a CCTV style view camera that follows the player around. I think this looks really cool and gives the player a feeling of being watched. This also makes the player feel like they are watching a movie and taking part in one as well. The idea behind this is to keep the player interested by changing the camera angles. I also wanted to make the player feel like they are part of a movie and a game at the same time. I do hope this pushes the player to feel this way. Please let me know what you think about the camera switching. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Secondly, I added a hallway camera. These cameras will be placed in narrow hallways and will follow the player as the player runs down the hall. The idea behind this is so that the player can feel the depth and the length of the hallway a little better instead of just passing through it. This is also to further illustrate the taking part of an action movie instead of being reactive to things on the screen. This allows for long hallways to feel a little more interesting. The hallway cameras are split into 3 different sets, but essentially they do the same thing. One from the left hand side showing the player more of the right hand walls, one from the top showing the player the floor only where the player is running, and one from the right showing the player the left hand wall. This seems like a small piece to the puzzle, but at the end it will have great impact. By designing it now, creating examples now, I can simply copy paste the core implementations of the cameras into a part of the level and just tweak it a little, saving time and money in the long run. This brings me to a very important question that I think a few of you are wondering. Why does my game not look as pretty? Or why do I have the same level for the past 8 months of development? I can answer that in a very simplistic way or in a very technical way. So I'm going to try hit a sweet spot between the two. The reason for me not developing levels or creating blockout levels is because I'm still in pre-alpha mode. What this means is that I'm learning, experimenting, and finding my feet in this massive world that is indie game development. Now, the more technical answer is that I'm spending a lot of time developing mechanics that the player can use in the game. I have a single level called R&D, and in this level that has been shown in all my devlogs so far. In this level, I am focusing on things like how the player moves, how the cameras will work, how the AI will patrol, and how the weapons will work, as well as pickups. This allows me to develop all the mechanics I need to make in my game without wasting time creating levels. I might need to rework because I was going to create a button and a door, but now I decided just to make the button. I would need to remove the door, or I created a hallway, but the player will not be able to run down the hallway without the camera clipping and breaking. In short, I'm spending all my time in pre-alpha to establish a feel for what Cloak Protocol will be, and this is where I'm creating the core game loop. But I do want to show something though. I have officially started creating the first level. I do not want to go into too much detail around the level, but I do want to show you that I have started learning the terrain creation tool. I'll most probably pull Devlog 2 or 3 splash maps and mega maps to make this level's terrain look amazing, but for now I've created the basic blockout of the first level as well as the initial shape of the cave and cave mouth. I have full time lapse of creating this level, and I will upload a separate video with just me creating the level and music. No talking, as I find it very nice to watch time lapse from time to time. Level design is something magical. Overall, I've made stupid crazy progress with fixing bugs and refining core mechanical game loops. I'm also super excited to finish the blockout of the first level that will pave the way for getting started with the rest of the levels in the game. I am very grateful that you guys are joining me on this journey, and I can honestly say after the last few weeks of struggling, this felt like a huge breakthrough, and I feel like a lot of progress was made. I hope to have more to show in the coming weeks. Thank you again for joining me on this ride, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.